from previous stuff. We've said that one, the curriculum is not neutral or value free. It's not just the syllabus, and it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Then we went on and we began to look at some of the elements that Prideaux was looking at. And Prideaux introduced for Tyler's 4 questions. And you'll remember that the 4 questions were, what's the purpose? PCOE is how I remember it. What is the purpose?
Yes.
What's the content? How is it organized? You know, how do we organize the experiences? And what are the, how do we evaluate it? So those are Tyler's 4 questions. So there were 4 questions, 3 levels of the curriculum. It's the curriculum as planned, the curriculum as practiced, and the curriculum as experienced. So the curriculum as planned, the curriculum as delivered, and the curriculum as experienced. Right? So there were 4 levels, 3 practices, and 2 approaches. The 2 approaches were the prescriptive approach and the descriptive approach. Right. Then we began to look at the at SACWA, and we started to just begin to speak about the notion of curriculum alignment. And when we're looking at the SACWA curriculum alignment, is aligning the curriculum internally. And particularly, we looked at the issue of purpose, and we said, what are significant outcomes was the big issue there. And some of the significant outcomes were your critical outcomes, applied competence, higher order thinking skills, for example, Bloom's taxonomy, and the whole notion of deep learning. Right. So that's kind of where we were at that point in time. And in fact, I think I've got it here in the slides. One of the things that that we mentioned early on, and this is what we want you to be able to do with Curriculum Bergen, is we want you to be able to ask questions about the curriculum. So it's not about finding answers. The curriculum course is about giving you tools so that you can begin to ask questions. And this little poem from Rudyard Kipling gives you 6 little questions that you can ask. 6 little friends have I, they taught me all I know. Their names are what? What is in the curriculum? And there are different answers for everybody, right? When must the curriculum happen? Evening, afternoon, during week? When must it happen? How do we sequence it? So there's also questions around when. Why? That's the whole purpose question. Where should it happen? In the workplace, in the college, in the community? Where does it happen? How does it happen? And who is involved in the curriculum? So who is the curriculum for? Who does it serve? The curriculum is for who, and the curriculum is for what? Who does the curriculum serve? So those 6 questions kind of help us to begin to ask questions about whatever curriculum we're offering. So when we're teaching, we say, is that what that the official curriculum is speaking about? Is it the same as what I think should happen? Is when the curriculum is happening the same that I think when the curriculum should happen? What other whens could there be? So these 6 questions not only tell you what the current situation is, but it allows us to ask what other possibilities there are around each of those 6 questions. Are there any other possible wins? And I can give you various examples.
Okay.
So we can give you lots of examples of that. For example, when TVET started out, it was people learning to do old kung fu movies, and you were like it was an apprentice, and it was out there, it was in the field, you know. Now it's in a classroom. That's a particular thing. That's a very 20th century, very European idea of how education should happen. So where it should happen is a big issue. And we mentioned this, so that's a recap of what we did earlier. And I was going to ask, where in the later group, we're going to be asking this question. Imagine that there was no curriculum. And I'll ask you this question again later on. And I'll ask it in the group. So I'll call the group chat and send you the group chat later on. So I'll just use this as a video to show other people. So when you're looking at the curriculum, I would want you to kind of close your eyes and say, imagine that there was no curriculum. Like do like John Lennon, eh? Imagine no curriculum. If there's no curriculum, what did you make the curriculum look like? Where would your students study? So I'm going to be asking you those questions. I'm going to be asking other people the questions. But think about where would your students study? What would your students study? What kind of curriculum would you put together for them to build roof trusses? How would you do it differently? Or how would you do the same? What bits and pieces do you like? All right, so that's an exercise that we'll do for the group. And we're going to look at the purpose of the curriculum as well. So now, because it's just you and me, then maybe we can come back and we can discuss this later on.
Okay.
For you to look at your purpose. Why are you to change this at the TVET college, not the FET college anymore? No? Why are you at the TVET college? What do you want for your learners? What is your own goal when it comes to teaching TVET? So your goal and the student's goal and the official goal may not be the same goal, but there are other possibilities. So what we're going to do is to open up the range of curriculum options, and that's the big word for the course. What curriculum options do you have within the current dispensation? So what you want is not necessarily what the students are getting, and so you need to consider in terms of your syllabus and your curriculum plan. Is your curriculum plan helping your students to get there, or is it hindering them? All right. Is your curriculum plan helping the students achieve the purpose that you and they and society has for them, or is it getting in the way? So again, revision. What is curriculum? We discussed with Pradho. This is again revision, right? It's an expression of educational ideas in practice. So it's particular ideas that people have again, and it expresses these ideas in practice. But different people have different ideas as to what it is that curriculum should be. Right? Some people would see that it's a planned learning experiences. Now we're going to discuss today that may not actually be planned. There are lots of unplanned learning experiences, and that happens outside of the school or institution and also forms part of the curriculum. So for those definition of curriculum is perhaps not a complete definition. It's that they maybe want to add other stuff. Like we said earlier on, the curriculum exists at 3 levels, and a curriculum, and this is important, phrase. In fact, we're going to go into your essay. I'm going to make the statement that the curriculum is the result of human agency. The curriculum didn't fall from the sky. God didn't give us the curriculum and say, yeah, here's the nature, it's perfect. Right? And God didn't look at it and say, it is very good, like it did with creation. This curriculum was created by human beings. And these human beings had a very definite set of values and beliefs which you can look at later, which you can look at and say, based on those values, they think that this is what students should know. Other people may think other things, but they have a very definite set of values. When you're looking at the curriculum, you can begin to say what their values are. And they have a very definite idea not only of what people should know, but also how people should come to know. Now, you did a course, not this time around with Nigel, where there's two different views of how people come to learn. The one view is that people learn through acquisition, like I'm trying to do to you now, where they just acquire knowledge and they get it in. The other view is that people acquire knowledge through participation, by being part and parcel of a process, the whole experiential thing. And what lots of this course is looking at, and lots of Nigel's work is looking at, is how people can learn through participation. How vocational education is not just what they learn, but it's a different pedagogy that's entailed when you're doing vocational education. That there are other ways of learning mathematics other than sitting in a class and taking down notes. Right? You can actually learn through participation, and it's about developing a pedagogy around that, which you don't have yet, but which you need to look at. Some lecturers already have ideas in their head about what the pedagogy should be. So once you understand what the principles are, what the foundation is, what the options are, then we can say, wait, as a vocational lecturer, in colleges, we don't do it that way. We do it this way. It's the same principle, but we just exercise the principle differently. And those are the kind of questions that we want you guys to be asking about what it is that students should know and how they come to know about it. Right? And all of this is underpinned by human agency. Human beings make the curriculum. It didn't come from God. And because of that, the curriculum of any institution, is contested and is problematic. Sorry, I've just got somebody at my door. Just give me a second. I'll just go on mute quickly. Sorry about that.
Yes.
So that's all background. Sorry, I'm back. So that's all kind of background. But let me come to today's. Oh, then we looked at SAQA, and I think that the whole thing about all of these options is that when you have a curriculum, the curriculum will help certain people and won't help other people. Now, we need to begin to think about what are the external curriculum alignments that we must do. Now, with SAQA, I shouldn't run over this idea because I actually should have exercise that begins to make this idea stick. With SAQA, we were speaking about curriculum alignment. Maybe I should ask you this question, Birgit. What is your understanding of curriculum alignment? When I say curriculum alignment, what do you understand that to mean?
According to my understanding, is the way which we're supposed to do the things according the line of the head or Department of Higher Education.
Okay. And what would that mean for you when you align? You use alignment in your trade, don't you? You have to align the
yes.
What you call that stuff that you guys align? I had the word now, man. The struts.
Yeah, we do alignment on the cars.
Oh, you on the motor.
And then we do alignment. Yes, we do alignment also in the machine accordingly.
Oh, I thought that you were in the that you were working in the carpentry trade.
Yes, I'm working in the NCV.
Okay, I thought you were just in the carpentry trade. I didn't know that you were in the motor trade as well.
No, we just have some ideas.
Okay. Now, when you're aligning the car, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is happening there? What is that? What does alignment mean?
Let us say maybe the car have 4-wheel, and that wheel they're not the way which is moving, they're not moving equally. When you do the alignment, it means that they must move the same time correctly.
Right. So they must also they must always move together, right?
Yes.
And they must
4 in 1. In other words, they're gonna be in 4 in 1.
Yes, yes. So the wheels of now, what do you think then curriculum alignment?
Then curriculum alignment, it means that the colleges, they must follow according to the document which is given by the department.
Okay. But
for example, if for example, we have our college member and we have a college in Cape Town, but if maybe we use the same curriculum, let us say we teach mathematics, all students, they will get the same question paper and the same things. In other words, even if maybe I teach in November, someone teach in Cape Town, but the exam is going to be the same, all the students will get the same thing. If we use the alignment curriculum, it means that we're going to do the same thing.
So you are aligning across the colleges?
Yes.
So that they're all flush?
Correct.
Right. So they're all doing the same thing. Excellent. that's one. So that's one version of curriculum alignment. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. When SAQA also speaks about curriculum alignment, then there are a number of other types of issues as well. They're saying, is our assessment and our teaching aligned? So, are we teaching what we're assessing? To what extent are those two things aligned? For example, when it comes to the question of what we spoke about last time, but you weren't here, the significant outcomes. So when you're speaking about the purpose of the qualification and you're teaching and you're saying we're going to assess critical thinking. If you're assessing critical thinking, are you teaching critical thinking as well? Because if you're not teaching critical thinking, if you're not teaching your students to think critically while you're doing the teaching, then there's going to be a misalignment between your student and what they're doing in the class and what they're doing in the exam. So the students are not going to be prepared because they prepared for a knowledge question paper. Here the question paper is asking them to think critically. So there's a misalignment between what the student is learning in class and what the student is actually being assessed. The same thing for Bloom's taxonomy. So if you're not teaching Bloom's taxonomy in the class, but you're assessing Bloom's taxonomy, then you're going to have a problem. The reverse is also true. If you are going to assess only knowledge, but you go into the class and you teach critical thinking, now the students are going to say, but now why are we learning all this useless stuff? And they're only going to learn knowledge. So can you see the bits and pieces are not aligned? And the idea is that everything should be aligned to the purpose of the qualification. So the department says, we must teach the critical outcomes. We must teach the Bloom's taxonomy. We must teach higher order thinking skills. But in the exam, they ask lower order thinking skills and memory questions. So they're saying one thing, but they're doing another thing. So the purpose and the assessment is not aligned. That then becomes a curriculum issue of curriculum alignment, that there's a misalignment between the purpose and the curriculum, and between the purpose and the assessment. So students are, 9 times out of 10, the students are not going to look at what the department says. They're going to look at what the department does, and they're going to go for the curriculum itself. They're going to go for the assessment. They're not going to worry about what the department thinks they should learn. Critical thinking, who cares about that? I'm going to study for my exam. So if the students and the assessment and the teaching and the way the students learn, by the way, if these 4 things are not aligned, then there's going to be trouble. Because some students, even though you teach them critical thinking, they still study in the old way. So when they come to the exam, they're not studying critical thinking. They think that it's going to be a knowledge exam like in the old days. And then they come to the exam and it's like, oh, trouble. I am going to run out of time. Why can't I run out of time yesterday? I've only got 10 minutes. I'm going to have to restart this lesson again. Yeah. Okay, so those are some of the issues that emerge. Okay. All right. So the curriculum alignment issue is quite an important issue. The other question, so that's curriculum alignment of purpose and assessment. So I'm going to have to take this away and I have to do. We may have to restart this meeting again. You may have to jump in again because I'm going to run out of time now. The second part of it, again, is. But again, I'm going to send you a link just now because my computer is going to shut down. That only gives me 40 minutes and then it shuts down.
Okay, no problem.
So then we're going to have to start. So I'll send you another link. Okay. The second thing that happens with curriculum alignment is there's curriculum alignment with the workplace. What we're doing at the college and what is happening in the workplace is also not aligned. So they come into the workplace and they ask, what do you do in the workplace? Why is the stuff not aligned? All right. So that's the second form of curriculum curriculum alignment. The third form of curriculum alignment is what we want to discuss today. And that is the question of external alignment. Is what we want to teach aligned with the conditions under which we are teaching? And here, and I hope my next slide is, yeah. So here is when now comes into play. And it's one of the reasons. Now says that in order for us to align the curriculum, we need to align the curriculum not just the content of the curriculum and say that now all these things happen, because the curriculum doesn't happen in a vacuum. When you have the curriculum has students. So if you teach a curriculum but it's not linked, it's not aligned with your students, you're going to have trouble. Right? And you have to find ways to adjust so that you can meet that misalignment between the students and that mismatch between the students and the curriculum. A curriculum also has teachers. So if you don't have the teachers in your classroom that the curriculum requires, and you make certain assumptions about the teachers, then you're going to end up with curriculum issues. Now, these things here, teacher subject matter, we only look at this block over here, subject matter. Much of our curriculum discussion talks about what needs to go into the curriculum, and maybe a little bit about how, what is missing from this model is about how the curriculum gets taught, pedagogy. We don't talk about who the students are. We don't talk about who the teachers are. We seldom speak about the context from which students come and the context in which they are going to go into. We assume that. And we don't speak about the curriculum making process itself. Who decides in the curriculum? Whose interests does it serve? Where is the curriculum made? How is the curriculum made? So those things are also part and parcel of the curriculum. So if, for example, this curriculum making thing, university decides on the curriculum, and if they have a say over what can and cannot happen. So if for example, the university say, look, we won't accept students at the university unless they have the following. And they have a lot of power over what happens in the curriculum, then they will decide from outside of the curriculum what is going to go into the curriculum. They will decide the what. And if you decide on the what, it may also have a big influence on how it is taught. Right? So the curriculum making process is a big part of what actually goes into the curriculum. And you need to take that into account. Now, you guys, you weren't here, but the other people were saying, yeah, but this curriculum, when they redetonated, we just got the books. It wasn't discussed with us. So there's a misalignment between the curriculum making process on the one hand, if this thing works, the curriculum making process on the one hand, and the teachers. So there's a misalignment there. So it's not just between the curriculum making and the influence of the curriculum, but the curriculum making and the teacher process needs to be aligned. The context and the students need to be aligned. The subject matter, which is the only area that we really focus on, needs to be aligned with who the teachers are. So if you've got a lot of teachers in the class, one of your colleagues was saying, you've got a lot of teachers in the class, but when they made this new the new ECDE, the electrical components, people who used to teach separate subjects now suddenly have to teach one subject, but they only specialize maybe in light current. Now they have to teach heavy current as well, and it's not their area of expertise. So suddenly you've got the teachers who were the right teachers for the whole curriculum. When you change the curriculum without changing the teachers, suddenly you've got an alignment issue, and people haven't necessarily applied for it. You change the curriculum and you say, okay, we're going to bring in the NCD. Did you take the teachers with you? Do the students understand that this is a new curriculum? You can't just change the subject matter. It has an impact on all these other areas. Now, what we're hoping to do with the other people when they come, Eric, Jenny, and this now reading is in your pack. is that we want them to break up into groups and then we discuss, is your curriculum that you've got aligned with the students that are there? What are the mismatches?
Okay.
What are the mismatches? Where are the matches? Where does it work? Where doesn't it work? The teachers, the students, and we're going to use these 5 common places because all these 5 things are part of the external alignment, curriculum alignment of your curriculum. Where are the mismatches? Where are the matches? Why are students failing? Is it because of the context? Are they teaching the wrong thing? Is it because of the curriculum making process? What is happening here? So that's on the one hand. What this will help us to do, by the way, besides the mismatches we just spoke about, is that also when we look further down, you're going to see that different people have different ideas. There's different ideologies of the curriculum. There are almost different curriculum ideologies. And people have different ideas as to what they think students are and should be, what they think subject matter should do. They have different ideas about the context. They have different ideas about the teachers, what teachers should be doing. And so Nal himself gives 5 different views as to how people speak about these 5 common places. Right? So there's actually, so this will give you like 25 different bits of information. So for each of these 5 views, each one has a different idea of what students should do or who students should be. Right? So there are different conceptions in this model. Helps you to understand what those different conceptions are. And there are different mismatches within the curriculum because there are, like I was saying now, there are mismatches between the curriculum making process and the teachers who are in the classroom. Have you taken the teachers with you in the curriculum making process? And once we can identify what those mismatches are, we can then begin to identify, so what is it that we need to fix in order for the curriculum to work? So that's almost the last question that you're going to be asking in the group discussion. And here are those 5 models that I mentioned, but I'm not going to do that. My time's going to run out now in a second, because I want to come on to this. That is Nal. The other person that we're looking at is Kelly, and Kelly speaks about different. You know what an adjective is, eh? Oopsie. An adjective is a word that describes something. Now, in most academic studies, you'll find these 2 things. You'll find there's a noun, curriculum, and an adjective that describes a noun. I was telling people when I was writing my thesis, I wrote all 250 pages just so I could add an adjective because these adjectives are quite important. Because they give you, so here, there are 5 adjectives about curriculum. There's the educational curriculum, the total curriculum, the hidden curriculum, the planned curriculum, and the formal curriculum. And the reason why one uses this language is that the intention is that you should now go into your college and say, no, but you can't just look at the curriculum in terms of content. Because curriculum isn't just about content and getting people to understand certain aims and objectives for a lesson. Curriculum has an educational. Kelly looks at 5 different aspects of the curriculum for us to get an expanded understanding of what the curriculum is. So he is arguing, what Kelly is arguing, is that the curriculum is not just the content. So he's saying the same thing like Nal is saying. But he's saying that the curriculum is much more than that. So, for example, he uses these adjectives. He says there's the educational curriculum. But remember that the curriculum is not just about getting people through exams. It's about educating them, developing moral stature and all that kind of stuff. A very good friend of ours, he was my wife's standard 5 teacher, and now he's what's that, grade 7 teacher. Now he's a best friend. He was always about, no, I'm not teaching them just mathematics. And so he used to have classes where he taught students how to dress, how to respect themselves, how to respect other people. He spent a lot of time teaching that. And he got very good mathematics results because he was teaching them other stuff. He taught them confidence and all those other things. So he's saying that education is more than just teaching the syllabus. There's an educational curriculum, there's a moral curriculum, there's a personal curriculum you're developing, and you're working with human beings. Right. He also then goes on to speak about the total curriculum. How do these different bits and pieces of the curriculum, how do they all fit together? You can't just see the curriculum as being this little thing that happens in a vacuum. What are the other aspects? What else must come into the curriculum to make this a total curriculum? What are the other bits and pieces that we add to the curriculum, right? to give it that? How do we see the mathematics curriculum, for example? And this is the example. Can you not hear me anymore?
I hear you, but my presentation is gone.
My presentation gone again. Stop sharing. Let me see what happens if I share again. Maybe I must close this window here. Can you open up this window? Can you see this window here?
Yes, I searched. Yes, now you're back.
Okay, let's see what happens. So YouTube. Am I still back?
Yes, yes.
Can you still see it? Okay, okay. So now what he was speaking about, we call this whole notion of the total curriculum. We call it the integrated curriculum. So the mathematics teacher as sees mathematics as something that just the mathematics teacher does. But the total curriculum says, no, we need to look at the purpose of the qualification as a whole. This is the example that he used of total curriculum. So mathematics needs to support engineering. And what is mathematics doing? Engineering must support mathematics. The language teacher is also a math teacher. The math and the math teacher is also a language teacher because the math teacher must help the student, for example, with mathematical literacy. The math teacher must help the student to understand all those word problems. Right. So you're saying about the integrated curriculum, how it's not just your subject, but your subject has to do with other subjects and the overall purpose of what is this whole qualification as a whole trying to do. Right? But again, you saw there? I bet again you're back.
Yeah, now we're back now.
Okay. Let me just see if I can get back into the screen. See if the screen is still works. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So now what's happening there again is that oopsie. Back. So there's 5 more concepts you need to learn. So the 5 concepts from now are the teachers, the students, the content matter, which we have already looked at, the curriculum making process, and the context, right? So those are 5 new things for you to get into your brain box and say, okay, I must remember those 5 things. And once you remember them, you must be able to understand and use them. Because remember that we're trying to engage and then apply. All right, so we understand, engage, apply. So there's 5 new concepts: the educational curriculum, the total curriculum, the hidden curriculum. Because even if you understand that the curriculum, that all this stuff happens together, right, you need to understand that there's some stuff that happens in the curriculum which is almost hidden away, where we're doing things which we're not even aware that we're doing this certain stuff that happens in the curriculum. Right. So, for example, the whole notion of hidden curriculum, I think, was first introduced by Balton Gintis from when I was younger, if I can remember correctly. They used to say that actually, because their whole thing was about how curriculum reproduces society. So they said that what is happening at working class schools is that we were actually using the schools as obedience training. So they were very critical of the hidden curriculum. They were saying that, the bell at the school is the same like the bell in the factory. And we teach at the school, what we do is we teach children they must be obedient, so that when they go to the factory, they're nice and obedient. And we teach them that there's a hierarchy, that you must move up the hierarchy. And that if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, then that's the way things are supposed to be. That there is a hierarchy, and the matrics are better than the standard sets. And those are not things that the curriculum says it is going to teach, but it's the things that are almost hidden away in the curriculum. Certain values are hidden away in the curriculum. Values, for example, that working in a vocational system is not as important as being academic. So if you go to a college, you can't come into university. But what is hidden away is they're telling you that people who work with their hands are not as important as people who work with their heads. And they're telling you that people who are working with their hands cannot work with their heads, that is for people who are not clever. So they don't say this, but it is hidden away in the curriculum. And so that's the hidden curriculum. You can put other things in the hidden curriculum as well. Or sorry, just coming back, you can say certain things in the hidden curriculum was the whole question of gender, for example. They said only boys can study that. Only girls must study that. So they said the difference between boys and girls, and they have different roles in life. So those are things that are hidden. But what you can do is you can turn the hidden curriculum around, and you can begin to hide positive things in the curriculum. Where you hide away in the curriculum, you hide it from the students, but you kind of slip it in, and you say that actually we want to have more girls studying mechanics. Or you can try to build things like equality into the curriculum, where you can start saying that, people who work with their hands have to work with their heads as well. Because the person, no mechanic builds a car once. Every mechanic builds a car twice. They fix the car first in their heads and then with their hands. So the idea that people who work with their hands don't work with their heads is complete nonsense. And we've known this for a very long time. But how do you turn the hidden curriculum around so that the people, your students, remember now speaking about your students, how can the hidden curriculum be positive for them? Because what Bowles and Gintas were saying was that in the working class schools, they were teaching people to sit in rows. In the middle class schools, they were teaching people open curriculum, they were teaching them to think for themselves. So they were teaching one curriculum to working class people and said, this is your role in life, and they were teaching another curriculum to people in the other schools. And in your elite schools, they were teaching people that you are boss of everyone and you are starting to become a boss. So they were training one group of people to become workers and another group of people to become bosses, and they had different curricula at these schools. So that's the hidden curriculum. So when you're looking at your own curriculum and say, what are the things that we are not saying? They also speak about, linked to the hidden curriculum, the null curriculum, the curriculum as to what is not in. What are the things that they're not teaching people? For example, we don't teach people about workers' rights in vocational colleges. What are we trying to say? When we don't teach our workers' rights in the college, what are we trying to say about workers and workers' rights? Why are those things not in the college? What are those things that we hide away in the curriculum? So you're going to be having to unpack what are the hidden aspects of the curriculum. Then, of course, is what we spoke about earlier on from Joe is the planned curriculum and the received curriculum. What's planned and what is received is not necessarily an alignment between the two. And what is received and what is experienced through those added is not necessarily an alignment. All these three things align. And then the first aspect that now speaks about, and looks like, is that now also speaks about, sorry, let me just check how we're doing for time. Oh, not very well. The last aspect that Kelly speaks about is it speaks about the formal curriculum, the stuff that you're supposed to teach that's in the syllabus, and the informal curriculum, which is all the other stuff that teachers actually do and the students actually do. Right. So, for example, this at school they got gate duty where you've got to look after the gates. There's extracurriculum activities. There's a time that you spend with your students after class. All those other things that you do that is not part of the curriculum that you don't get paid for. That is the informal curriculum. But without the informal curriculum, Kelly's arguing, the formal curriculum wouldn't work. And so he's asking now, why are those things, why are those aspects of the curriculum, why are those aspects informal and why are they not formalized? All right. So what we're going to do with the other group, we're gonna, and we'll see if we can get those discussions together so we can get those discussions to you as well. As we're going to be, so what we're going to do is to break them up into groups, and each one of them must discuss the educational curriculum at their colleges.
Okay.
And the same way, Abraham, you've got colleagues, luckily for you, you can maybe discuss with the Tiva Butsi. I'm not sure if maybe we should put you in a discussion group where all the members people can come together and start to say, what is our educational curriculum? Are we teaching people just to pass the exam? Or are we developing it into broad, total human beings? Are we teaching the whole person? When we're speaking about the total curriculum, is the math teacher working with the language teacher? Are we working across the curriculum? Are we doing intercurricular activities that enables the students to achieve the whole purpose of that particular syllabus, of the whole qualification, not just my subject? We're going to have to look at what is the hidden curriculum of Wimbe College. Do we have other systems? Are we an obedience training school? Are we an empowering school? What are the hidden values that are in our curriculum? What is positive and what is negative about the way in which our curriculum is structured? That's the hard one. We're going to do something. Is there a difference between the curriculum as planned and the curriculum as practiced? Where are the gaps? Why are the gaps? Who are the gaps? When are the gaps? Right. And then what are the informal activities that are not part of the formal curriculum? What are the informal activities that we do at colleges that is not part of the syllabus, that we don't get paid for, the students don't get paid for, and do these things add value? And what do we do with this informal curriculum? So those are some of the issues that we discussed of. These are the things that are not in the syllabus, but which is vitally important. That when you're having a conversation with your colleagues, you say, no, that's a very narrow understanding of what the curriculum is. Because the curriculum is not just the syllabus. The curriculum must also be educational. It must be total. We need to look at the gaps between the planned curriculum and the received curriculum, and we need to look at the informal curriculum. So you'll be having discussions with your colleagues about how you're looking at these other aspects of the curriculum. You'll be having discussions with your colleagues and say, and when the DA comes to visit, you say no. But when we are having this conversation, we cannot have the conversation in a vacuum. We need to consider who the teachers are. There are 5 common places of any curriculum. You need to look at who you cannot just look at the content. You must look at who the teachers are, you must look at who the students are, and it's a mismatch. So you're taking this stuff and you're building it into your everyday conversations, and you're starting to have curriculum conversations at your college about what it is that the full curriculum needs to look like. Right? So, yeah. So here's some other stuff that people are saying, what's happening with the curriculum. And they're saying, for example, one of the issues is they say that educational experience is precisely what politicians do not want. They don't want people to have an educational experience. They insist that you must focus on the test scores and the bottom line. And so they're doing standardized curriculum. So we're not doing a total curriculum, but in fact, the examinations have colonized the curriculum. So instead of teaching, instead of being educators, we become people preparing other people for exams. Right. So there is no educational experience, there's something else. The curriculum that we're teaching is something else. And what we need to imagine is, if there was no curriculum, how we reimagine what the curriculum should look like. The other thing that Pinar is saying, he's saying that exam-driven curricula demote teachers from being scholars and intellectuals to technicians in service of the state. So teachers, he's arguing at the time, and other people have argued, that teachers will almost become deprofessionalized. This is, I think Pinar was speaking out of America, but he came to visit in South Africa as well, by the way. So he's a great expert. There was another thing that's looking at I think this is a Tibet college in the UK where Nixon et al. Looked at practitioner experience, and they said that the way in which local policy was articulated, the way in which people spoke about policy, is it operated to consist the exercise of pedagogic judgment and agency. In other words, the way in which people exercise policy, it was almost to tell the teachers, look, shut up, you must just do your job. Instead of treating the lecturers like professionals. So the lecturers were sitting around and they were waiting for the department to tell them what to do, rather than being able to exercise their own judgment. Okay. So that, yeah. I'm glad I had this test run with you. Now I realize that this section is actually quite long. I'm not sure I'm going to get to all those exercises. So I'm going to have to go much quicker with the other group and I have to do so much more.
Okay.
But that is the,
okay.
But this is the essence, and what we are hoping, again, is that you as transformative intellectuals at your college will begin to engage with the curriculum as it is, so that you begin to exercise pedagogic judgment. But you almost need these words, like, no, there are certain commonplaces of the curriculum that we need to look at, so that when you engage, you can begin to bring theory to the people and begin to unpack what is happening in front of you and say, actually, when I look at the curriculum, that is the problem. This is why, give me a student in your class, doesn't understand functions. Give me a name of a student in your class that I can use for you.
What say?
Give me a name of a student in your class who's struggling.
Yeah, some they're struggling.
Which one?
You mean the number? Oh, your voice.
Yeah,
I don't hear you.
Give me a student's name.
Oh, Samuel.
Samuel. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's say, why is Samuel struggling with functions? Right. So that's the kind of question that we want to ask. And to what extent does the total curriculum, the fact that we don't have a total curriculum, but do have a total curriculum, to what extent does that play a role? Right. What is it that Samuel is struggling with? Is it the external curriculum? Is it the way that we've organized our internal curriculum? Is it the way that we seek the subject? Where exactly is Samuel experiencing these particular problems? Okay. That's it. And so, and we want you to be, we want you to be bringing those experiences to say, this is why Samuel is failing, and this is what we as Tibet College lecturers can do about it. Okay. Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have enough because of data constraints. We don't have enough time to discuss these things. But I'd love to have this kind of discussion with amongst us to say how can we begin to discuss the Samuels in our class and say, this is the problem. What can we do about it? This is what we need to address, so that we can make the curriculum at Tibet colleges work better, so that we can bring down the failure rate. And we can push up, and we can push up the quality of students that we put out there into the world. Okay, so actually,
may I answer your question?
Yeah, please.
Timmy?
Please also.
And then, for example, if maybe especially in the mathematics, you find that maybe the students, they're doing the pure maths, but when they come from the secondary, they do math lit, and then
I'm writing down notes,
and they're not interested on that maths.
Yes.
And then maybe they tell me that since they are born, they never pass maths, and then their interest in maths is very low. Then how can I uplift it?
And so the question is student interest now. In terms of Null's model, what is the problem? What is happening there? So so you got to, so Null would begin to, Null's model would begin to point to some of those issues. So now just link what you're saying now, what's happening in practice, to the theory.
Yes.
How do you link it to the theory? Where in terms of Null's model? Null says there are certain common places, right? And the common places are? There are certain things to take into account when you're designing a curriculum. You can't just design the content. You also have to take into account the teachers, who the teachers are, the curriculum making process, the context from which the students come, and the students themselves.
Yes.
So now is saying that there's a mismatch, in terms of what you said, there's a mismatch between the way in which the curriculum is constructed and the students who are in the classroom. There's a gap.
Correct.
We were expecting people to come in there who really love mathematics. But the students who are coming in don't love mathematics. It's a problem. And Null's model has foreseen that there would be such a problem. It's actually been predicted. So the fact that there was a problem wasn't only, it wasn't an accident, it was predictable. We could actually have used Null's model when we were starting the process. Before we designed the curriculum, we could have, if we had used Null's model, we could have predicted this problem. But because we didn't predict the problem, we haven't made provision for it. So Null has predicted that we need to look at the students' aspect. But all that we did is we designed the curriculum, but we didn't take into account the students. We didn't take into account who the lecturers were. We did to an extent.
Correct.
We didn't look at how do we involve the lecturers in the curriculum making process. So there was, I think there were some discussions, or some people pointed there were some discussions. But to what extent did we involve the lecturers in the curriculum making process? And what is the context within which this curriculum is happening? So now we have people, there's math literacy at the school, and there's mathematics at the TVET college. Initially, what had happened is people said, no, everybody can do math literacy and they can do engineering. But there was a problem. But there was a problem there. Now picks up this problem because this is a problem of context. If you go into the industry, they're going to say, but where's your mathematics? And so the context was that they developed a curriculum which didn't fit into the context which required people to do mathematics. So now all artisans have to have mathematics. That means that anybody who wants to be a plumber must do mathematics.
Correct.
And they can't do mathematics. So the content allowed people to do mathematical literacy. On the books, you can do mathematical literacy. But in the real life, in the real context, people can't do that. So there's a mismatch between the context. There was first a mismatch between the context and the content. So they fix that mismatch, and everybody's now doing mathematics. But now there's a mismatch between the context, between the content, and the student. And unless we put in place a plan to, I suspect, to address the mathematical problem. Now people are having a backlog of maths when they come into there, and also that people fear maths, and unless we have a program that addresses that, we're in trouble. And now what the department is now saying, the department is saying that the teachers must sort this out. But that doesn't necessarily understand then what the situation is with the teachers. The teachers already have a full curriculum where they're struggling to get these students through the mathematics as it is. They don't have time to work on this other stuff. So you need to be paying somebody who can come in and say, Let us help the teachers, let us give the teachers a helping hand to deal with this problem that we've created. Because the whole curriculum making process created this problem. So can you see how you use now in order to break the, so you describe the problem using now. You didn't say this is a problem. You bring it, says, right, I've identified the problem. This is how the problem links to now. Now could have predicted this problem before we started. But you're linking what is happening on the ground to a theoretical model. And that's what we're going to be requiring of you is to link your discussions. When you say something, to link it to the theory, to link it to the literature rather. Because the literature can help you to identify what the problem is and to predict, almost to anticipate certain problems before they happen. So when this NCV, when the native thing comes in, we need to ask the question. Now we're going to have a new native. Have we taken into account the context? What are the contextual issues that we need to take into account? Did the department look at the contextual issues? What are the student issues that we need to take into account? What are the teacher issues going to take into account? If native is going to be with a QCTO and everybody's used to teaching for exams, how are we going to change this? Do we have our colleges? Are our colleges equipped to teach for the QCTO? So there's a whole lot of other questions that now requires us to ask, but which we have not been asking. I'm not sure. Do you see how the model, how you use a model in order to look at a situation?
Yes.
Hey. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to test that a bit later. Actually, I must start thinking of exercises. But we need to find ways to test whether you can use a model to unpack a situation, whether you can use a model to engage with what's going to happen in the future, because the model enables us to predict the future. That makes us profit. We can actually see the future, and because we can see the future, we can act in the present. But the model enables us to do that. So we don't, after the situation, come along and say, oh, you know what, this is the problem. This is what's happening in our colleges. Because we have a model, we can see we can see the problem before the problem even happens. Because we have theory that enable us to predict it. Okay, so we've got two situations in our hand now. The NCV is going to change, and the native is going to change. And that's coming.
Yes.
We should be able to use our curriculum knowledge to predict what is going to happen in the future, and then almost see as if there's a time travel machine, because now we know it's going to happen in the future. So it's almost like the theory gives us like a time travel. So what do we need to do in the present to make sure that that future doesn't happen? Okay, so rather than wait for it to happen, what do we need to do now in order to make sure that that future doesn't happen? We can say, we can look back and we can say, this is the mistake that we made. Now, if we made the mistake of the misalignment between context and curriculum, and now content and student, now we know where the gap is. And we can identify the gap and we can say, this was predictable. We should have seen this. We didn't. Now, we need to be asking the question, what are we going to do about it? Somebody messed up. How do we fix this problem? What? So we can't go on complaining about the problem. So say, now, okay, we have a problem. There's a mismatch between the students and the content. Okay, that's only one of the problems, right? Now what are we going to do about it? And that's the question that we as curriculum leaders need to be asking ourselves. Right? And that we hope we will get an opportunity to ask during this course as soon as we get the discussion board up and running.